Star Trek Fleet Captains is a space exploration and combat game set in the Star Trek Prime universe that incorporates the popular HeroClix miniature system.
In Star Trek Fleet Captains, players choose one of two fleets, the Klingons or the Federation. They move through an unexplored area of space, exploring different areas, creating outposts, and completing missions in order to try and dominate this particular unknown area. The size of the sector that you're going to explore and the victory conditions for winning this game will depend on what you decide on at the beginning of the game. The game can play in 1 to 3 hours, depending on what you decide, and are played by 2 players or 4 players playing in teams of 2.
Players begin Star Trek Fleet Captains by deciding on the game's victory point goal, which will determine the winner. The recommended goal for a first game is 10 victory points, which makes for a 1 to 1.5 hour game. Once the game goal's been decided, then each side chooses either the Klingon or the Federation fleet and puts that side's command post at their side of the table.
Each player then builds their fleet by drawing ship cards out of their ship deck until they reach a size of fleet that equals the victory points they've decided on to win the game. They then take the miniatures that correspond to each of those ships and put them in their muster area on their command post. The ship cards then tell them what their special abilities for those ships are, as well as all the different system configurations that that ship can have. This is also reflected on the HeroClix style at the bottom of the model. These system configurations give scores for shields, engines, weapons, and sensors. The white numbers are used when the ship is completely undamaged. Yellow is for ships that have taken 1 damage, and red for ships that have taken 2 damage. There are also special settings on some of the ships that can cloak.
The ship cards also list the type and number of missions that you're going to draw during the game. Missions come in 3 types. Science, which involves exploring new sectors, scanning regions, and testing new technologies. Influence, which involves controlling new areas or building installations. And combat, which is successfully fighting other ships. Successfully completing a mission is going to earn you anywhere from 1 to 4 victory points, so completing them is crucial to winning the game. Now, in order to be better equipped for completing their missions, each player is going to build a command deck out of 4 of the 10 available subdecks for their side. Each subdeck has a slightly different theme to it and equips you better for completing certain kinds of missions, so you're going to have to be really careful about how you combine this in order to optimize your strategy. Once that deck's been built, each player is going to shuffle it together and draw 4 cards to start off their hand.
Finally, each player draws the number of missions as indicated on their ship cards. They then shuffle them together and create their very own mission deck. They draw the top 3 cards off that deck and put them in front of them underneath their command post.
During a player's turn, they can take any or all of the following activities: moving a ship, making a power adjustment, playing a command card, cycling through mission cards or discarding a command card, and taking up to 3 ship actions. Now, you can take these activities in any order, but one of them has to be completed fully before you start the next.
Now, movement in Fleet Captains is simple. Each ship can move at least 1 location per turn. If you want to move further than that, you're going to have an engine system rating that's the same size or greater as the size of the location that you're crossing. It is possible to cross more than 1 location tile in a turn, you just have to have enough movement points for that to happen.
Now, when a player moves into an unexplored area of space, they get to explore it. That means the tile's flipped over with the text facing the player who's doing the exploring so that you can keep track of who's explored which areas of the map. Any effects that are listed on the tile are going to come into effect immediately, and the player is going to roll a die to see if an encounter happens. And an encounter is going to end the ship's movement immediately.
So an encounter can provide your ship with a system boost, or it can saddle you with unwanted and dangerous baggage, like tribbles, for instance. It can also cause your ship damage, or it can cause you to make a system test. During a test, a player rolls a 6-sided die. They then add to that number the appropriate system score for that ship that they're using. They can also boost that score with a command card from their hand if they wish. So the total of all those things has to equal the amount given on the encounter card, and if it does, then they succeed in their test.
Now, actions allow ships to scan unexplored locations, exert influence over new areas, build installations, repair damaged ships, transport crew or cargo, cloak or uncloak a ship, or engage in combat. While each player can take up to 3 actions a turn, each ship can usually only take 1 action. Scanning lets players look at unexplored location tiles or search for cloaked ships. An influence action allows you to place a control token in a region or remove one belonging to your opponent. If there's a habitable planet in a region, then you can play multiple control tokens in order to build an installation. And there's 3 types of installations. Outposts and colonies allow you to repair damaged ships, while building a starbase gets you a victory point.
Certain ships can also take the cloaking action. This means you remove your model from the board and replace it with a cloak token, which you can move about the board as if it were a ship. Now, once you're cloaked, you can take another action, which is creating a sensor echo. Now, the sensor echo token sits on the board the same way that your cloak token does, but you can move them both about the board independently, which means that you can bluff your opponents so they don't exactly know where your ship is.
Ship-to-ship combat works as an opposed system test. The attacker is going to pit their weapons test against the shield test of the defender, and each player also gets to play 1 command card. Damage gets tracked by flipping the click style on the bottom of the ship over to the appropriate color. If a ship's destroyed, that player can take a reinforcement action later on in order to replace it and bring their fleet back up to strength. If you're the attacker and you destroy an opponent's ship, then you gain a victory point.
If a player completes a mission at any point during their turn, they take that mission card and put it in their victory card pile. Then they immediately take another mission card from their mission deck and replace that mission. Successfully completed encounters are also placed in the victory card pile. Any victory points that are earned through destroying ships or other bonuses are tracked on counters, and those counters are also placed in that pile. Once one player reaches the victory conditions for that game in terms of victory points, the game ends immediately and that player wins. So a big pro for this game is the variability in the setup. At the beginning of the game, you can decide how big your board is going to be, how long you're going to be playing, what your victory conditions are. So this means that with the same game, you've got a huge amount of variability in how you play, how long it takes, and the kind of game you're going to end up playing, which is great. One con, though, for this game is the components. It doesn't really feel like enough time has been put into the planning of the components of this game. A lot of them are quite flimsy. The HeroClix miniatures, they can be quite small. You have to peer at them to really see what those numbers are. It just feels like some of the component problems are getting in the way of how much fun this game could really be.
Another thing that does sometimes get in the way of the gameplay is that the rules feel a little bit fiddlier than they really need to be, especially the bookkeeping. For example, you might find that in some cases your ship's status is being tracked by the HeroClix style, a couple of extra counters, and even a card that's being held in its cargo area. So there's really a lot to keep track of, and that can get to be too much for you to really get into the game. Once you do really get to enjoy the gameplay, though, you'll realize that this game does a fantastic job of conveying the theme and the feel of the Star Trek universe. There's that sense of exploration, there's tension during the combat, and there's some serious tactical and diplomatic conflicts that go along, which is really, really cool.